Hello and welcome to ABCmouse's webinar on getting your kid ready for their first ever day at school. My name is Dr. Robert Kalinowski. I'm so happy that you've joined us today. Let's do it! We got 3 months, maybe 3 months and change before your kid, and my kid, by the way, go to school for the first time. So here's how today's going to work. I have curated a list of top 10 items to get your kid ready for their first day of school, to set them up for success, and also just so that they could go, like very basic things like their clothes and whatever equipment they need, right? So the top 10 list is divided into 2 parts. The top half is about things that you need to interact with your school or stuff, practical things that you need to do, perhaps external from your child, so that they can just go to school and be ready, right? The second half focuses much more on getting your kid emotionally, psychologically ready to leave the house and go to school and not have a tantrum and run back into the car. By the way, that second half of the list is also going to be very useful for you, for your butterflies on your first day of school as well. So let's get into it. I want to mention at the top that this is meant to be a live webinar that fully involves your participation. So if you have a question or a comment, leave it in the comments. We'll leave plenty of time at the end so that we'll get through everybody's questions, okay? So let's get going. Here we are. It is May 6th. Is it the 6th today? Yeah. It's Monday, May 6th. That's the kind of Monday I'm having. I had to check the date. So it's Monday, May 6th. My kid is 4 and entering TK for the first time, and she starts mid-August. So May, June, July, August. We're talking about 3 months and less than 2 weeks. What is the number one thing that you need to be doing so that your kid can go to school? Number one is enroll them for school. You need to actually enroll your kid so that they can go to school. Now, what does enrollment involve? Enrollment is like signing up for the most bureaucratic thing you've ever done, except much harder because it's not you're signing up, but you're actually signing up a different person from yourself. So you need to get your kid's birth certificate. You need to have your kid go get a checkup at the doctor, get written up that they're in good health or whatever. They need their vaccinations. You need to get dental and vision checks. And this, by the way, even if your school doesn't require it, is an excellent idea. You don't want your kid going to school and it turns out that they're a little bit farsighted, which is very typical in early childhood. Maybe they might need corrective lenses for just a short period now in early childhood. This is a big one. Emergency contact information. Make sure all of that stuff is in the right place. Oh, you got to have proof of residency as well. So make sure you have your utility bill or your residence demonstrated in paper somehow so that you can enroll. Now, every school district is able to do it their own way. So there's no one way that unifies signing up for school for the United States of America. So you need to contact your school and find out how they do it. In our case, this is done online, and many schools are doing this, but it's a pretty long, involved form online. It involves taking a lot of pictures of documents and uploading them. Here's a tip that we learned when we enrolled our kid for TK. Make sure that your pictures of your documents are clear, right? So if you're taking a picture of your kid's birth certificate and the person in the school office can't read it, then they'll need to contact you and that can slow things down, right? So make sure that your pictures are crystal clear. So this one is an interesting first opportunity to do what I think is important throughout the entire course of leading up to school and then after school begins, which is you want to increase your surface contact with the school. How many times can you be contacting the school and the school be contacting you? So if you're calling that office several times before the school year starts, you're already ahead of the game, or if you're sending back and forth a couple of emails. So take the time to contact your school and find out how it is that they do enrollment so that you can get it done. If you're anything like my family, you have to set aside like several hours for this process. But I don't know. Schools vary. Some of them are very easy and straightforward. I want to hear what your experience was like. All right, number 2, let's go shopping. So why do you need to go shopping? Well, one reason obviously is because your school might have certain requirements for your kid to need things to be able to go there, right? But the much more important reason why you want to set a date to go shopping with your kid to get school supplies is because it gives them a sense of control over the process. Now, as for my background, I'm a developmental scientist. I study the ways that young kids learn and grow in the early years, particularly around cognitive and social emotional development, right? And I can tell you that perhaps one of the most important things I've learned is about individual differences. Kids are different. Siblings tend to be more similar than the population at large, but for those of you who have multiple kids, you know that even siblings can be very, very different. So there's going to be a range of personalities that we're all dealing with our kids and getting ready for school. Some kids really want the adventure. They're like, yeah, let's do it. Other kids, maybe they do want the adventure, but they don't have a choice in the matter, and that really rubs them the wrong way. By going shopping together, you're giving your kid the opportunity to have a choice. You're also getting them to do something very early on, which is critically important. Get them excited for school. School isn't something you have to do. School isn't this scary thing out there. It's something fun. It's a new adventure. And by the way, you get that unicorn backpack that you've been wanting. So set a special time, a fun time, for your kid and you to go out and get the things that they need from school. If your school says, well, actually, they don't need anything, we supply everything, then make up some things that you need to get, like a backpack or a new jacket or a water bottle. I know that most schools now, they do have the kid bring the water bottle, so get a new water bottle, exactly the design that your kid is into. Lean in to their own interests and then associate those interests with school. Your kid's into unicorns, you get the unicorn water bottle, you're going to Big Kid Unicorn School. Your kid likes the superheroes, you get the superhero water bottle, you're going to Big Kid Superhero School. All right, let's go on to the next point. Number 3, make transportation plans. So every school is different and everyone's situation is different. Perhaps you don't need to make plans because your school is on your block and you already know that you're going to walk there. Even if that's the case, you should walk there together around the time school starts, just as an activity to get ready to go to school. For most of us, your school is not going to be on your block, and so you need to figure something out, right? For example, if you are driving your kid to school, what is it like to get your kid into the car and drive there? Is there a long waiting line to get into the unloading area? The schools in my neighborhood can have lines that go around the block of parents just waiting to drop off their kid. So you want to anticipate that. You want to know exactly where is the line, how do I get into it, how much time does it take for me to drop off my kid? And what I would recommend is that you do a dry run before school starts. Let's say your kid is taking the bus. Okay. Who do I need to contact for them to be on the bus? How does this work? What's the attendance like on the bus? Do I wait with them here at the bus stop? All of the logistics of taking a bus, that's something that you should work out ahead of time. And then, again, do a dry run, something that is, nothing's universal with little kids, but one of the things that's close to it is excitement around buses. And if you can use the bus as a tool to help your kid feel empowered, like they're doing something they love, they're excited about, then use it. Go out and wait for the bus together one morning and say, hey, in a couple months, you're going to be getting on that bus like a big kid and going off to school. Okay, let's go to number 4, arrange after-school care. So we talked about signing up for school, we talked about going shopping to get stuff, we talked about getting there, but what about getting home? So many working parents work longer than the school day, right? So you're going to need some plan in place for arranging after-school care. Many school sites have something on site, but you still need to sign up for it, right? And it might come with some extra fee. There might be options. So you want to be able to review what those options are, sign up for the one that your kid is excited about, right? So if one option is at the school, there's soccer play time, but also at the school, there's art time. They're two different classes. Well, you have to pick one and you have to sign up for the right one. If your kid is going to be picked up by a family member or someone else that you trust and brought somewhere else to wait for you until you're done with work, well, then your kid needs to understand that. And they need to understand who it is that they're trusting to pick them up at the end of the school day and how long that person is going to be with them until they can be at home with you. All right, let's go to number 5. Number 5 is school meals. So again, this is one of those things, and I'd love to hear from you, but it's one of those things that varies dramatically school to school, right? Some schools, the parent prepares everything. Other schools, the parent prepares nothing, like you don't even have to bring your kid with a lunchbox and water, and everything in between. So find out what is the arrangement for meals at your kid's school and sign up accordingly, right? Very important. If your kid has some food allergies, then your school needs to know. And as I was saying at the top, take every opportunity you can to increase the surface area contact between you and the kid's school. So let's say your kid has a food allergy. You really want your kid's teacher to know this. So this gives you a wonderful excuse to reach out with that teacher, even if it's just to have like a 5-minute phone call or an email exchange. It makes so that the teacher knows who you are and knows that you're ready to get involved with that school community. I'll say another point on this about the involvement with the school community. For many of us, not all of us, but for many of us, this will be our first big opportunity to really get tied into a community. School is one of the foundations of civics in our society. You get to know the other parents, you get to know the other kids. It's a diversity of people all kind of converging into the same space. You all have something in common, which is that you have a kid this age and you live relatively close, but you all have tons of things that are different. And it's a first large opportunity to get involved in your community. For some of us, I know that for me, we live in a new city now. We only moved around Christmas. And we've been looking for this opportunity. We would love to set down some roots. And for us, one way to possibly do that is through the school that we're not a part of yet, but that we will be a part of come August. And a small part of that then is, can we find any excuse to call up our kid's teacher and have a little conversation before the school year starts? All right, let's move on now to number 6. So now we're getting to the second half of the list. Number 6 is set up a learning-friendly space at home. And 6 through the end of the list are really things about what can you do at home to impact your kids' psychological orientation, their social and emotional orientation towards going to school. I mentioned a little bit earlier that this is kind of a loss of power for your kid, right? School is mandatory. Your kid has to go. Maybe you have to go to work. Watching your kid at home indefinitely is not an option. They have to go to school. So this is, in some real ways, a kind of loss of power and choice for your kid, and perhaps for you as well. So here then is an opportunity to get excited about this, to introduce choice and happiness and optimism into this process. When you set up a learning-friendly space at your home, what you're saying is, here is a piece of school that's in our home. Here's a piece of school that is safe for us, that we have total control over. A space at home could be, for example, a little table and a chair, Perhaps you're going to put a calendar up on the wall, or like a to-do list on the wall, a little area for papers and pencils, colors, and so on. That's all I mean by a learning space at home. It's a space also to put things. So if your kid gets, worksheets, art supplies, their finished art projects home from school, it gives you a zone where it's like, okay, all this stuff goes here first. For those of you where your kids are already in daycare, you're already aware that you're just sent home with massive piles of stuff. So you might already have a place for this stuff to go. You're going to want to create a space where you can have that stuff come in. All right, so Producer Kate, I just want to mention that I'm seeing a pop-up here on my screen, if we could tap that down. Thank you. Okay, so this is another opportunity, by the way, going back to shopping, where you can go to a stationery store, a kid's supply store, and have it be an event with your kid where they're going to pick out the supplies that they want to put in their school area. All right, let's go to number 7. Number 7, establish your school routine now. So everyone with kids, especially if you have 2 or 3 kids, preschool age. I have 2, by the way. We all know how long it takes to get out of the house. It takes 2 hours. Oh, some friends want to meet at the park. Okay, let's go. Takes 2 hours. 2 hours to go. Oh, we're kind of low on milk. Let's just run out to the school. 2 hours. 2 hours. Takes 2 hours to do anything. You don't want it to be 2 hours. Or if it is going to be 2 hours, then you want to get ahead of it and get that routine down. Now, if you only have the 1 kid, your life is easier than mine, I guess. If you have 3, then it's considerably harder. But you want to get this ritual down so that you are not scrambling to get out of the house on the first day of school. You end up being late several times in the first couple of weeks. That doesn't make anyone feel good. So set up a routine. The routine starts, as many of you already know, with bedtime. Are you winding down early enough? Are they having their meals early enough, their bath time early enough? Is there plenty of time with just low-key activities before bedtime, like reading together or just coloring? Set up a long runway and an early runway so they can get to bed earlier. Then, of course, you're also going to need to know exactly what time they need to get up so that you can go through the whole ritual so that you can get them out the door in time to go to school. And the key point of advice is you want to be doing this before the first day of school. Now, even as a parent who sends my kids to preschool, preschool is mushy. It's like, you show up at 9, 9:30, whatever, it's preschool, it's fine. School isn't like that. It's very regimented, it's very scheduled, and the expectation for the vast majority of TKs and kindergartens out there is that the school day starts at the same time every day, and there's not that same kind of flexibility. So you're going to want to get into your routine, hit your stride before they need to be in the classroom on that first day. Number 8, create a goodbye ritual. And for this one, we have a challenge for you, #OffToSchoolChallenge. And let me tell you about it. So, very, very common occurrence is when your kid is going off to school for the first time, they don't want to go. They kick and scream and cry. They try to run back into the car with you. It's very stressful. There's a whole bunch of cars around. You don't want a running kid around cars. It's a nightmare, right? So all of these other tips have helped with getting up to this point of your kid feeling empowered and excited to enter that classroom on the first day. But even so, it's tough. Create a goodbye ritual. And you can start doing this even when you're not saying goodbye at home. Maybe a special high five, a hug, a special saying that you say to one another. And then you can try it when they're going off somewhere else. So if your kid goes to a daycare or a preschool, you could try it then. If you drop your kids off with family, you can try it then. If you don't have anything like that in your life right now, then make one up, right? Use another parent, another family member and just make it up that you're dropping your kid off with that person, just so that you can get into this ritual. What I'd like to do is I'd like for you to take video of your ritual and then put hashtag off to school challenge at us, at ABCmouse, put it on TikTok, or you can post it here, because we would love to see all the different goodbye rituals that are working for you. Well, I guess we don't know if they're going to work yet. We'll know in August, right? And I'm going to make one up as well. This is something that I haven't done yet with my older kid. But I can tell you from our experience with various daycares and preschools, I do think that we're going to need it. We're going to need a certain ritual so that she feels empowered and safe, but also excited to go off on her own and be a big kid. All right, number 9. Number 9 and 10 are really about being able to participate in classroom instruction, classroom socialization. So number 9 is practice listening and following instructions. So one of the dramatically different things between a preschool or a daycare setting or being at home and being in a classroom is that the kid to adult ratio changes a lot, right? So in a TK or a K classroom, there's going to be a lot more kids per adult. And a very important element of creating a positive and safe and educational environment is classroom discipline, right? So what you're going to want to do is practice this somehow. Now, there's a number of great ways to do this. One great place to start is right now, when you are doing your reading ritual, start checking out books about being at school. Start checking out books from your local library about the classroom environment, being at school, and what that's like. You don't need to ask your librarian specifically about, tell me about classroom discipline. I want a book about classroom discipline. Really, any book about the first day of school is going to include elements of this. Once you are reading those books, getting your kid excited about that environment, giving them a window into that environment, then you practice it at home, right? So your kid might already like playing school and might designate that you're the teacher and they're the student, or vice versa. Lean into that. If they don't already play it, then maybe you can initiate the game. You can set up your kid, maybe siblings, babies, stuffed animals, pets, whatever, to be the classroom and practice things like not speaking out of turn, raising your hand, staying seated, even if it's literally 30 seconds, staying seated until the person who's playing the teacher tells you that you can get up. Simple, basic things like this are really going to help. By the way, I've got a couple of recommendations for this kind of first day of school book that you could read with your kids. One is called Butterflies on the First Day of School. Butterflies on the First Day of School. It's by Annie Silvestro, illustrated by Dream Chen. And another one that I love is School's First Day of School. So it's the first day of school told by the school's perspective by Adam Rex and Christian Robinson. And these are ones that I just personally, I love them and I use them with my kids right now. All right, moving on to number 10. Number 10 for getting your kid ready for their first day of school is encourage social skills with peers. As I just mentioned with the last point, the biggest change when going into TK or kindergarten is the student-to-teacher ratio changes by a lot. It gets a lot bigger, right? So one of the great challenges is that your kid is going to need to know how to get on well with other kids without the adult standing right over them. So where are the opportunities to practice this? Well, if your kid already goes to a daycare or a preschool, that's a great opportunity. Even if they do, it's still a good idea for you to get to observe this to see how your kid does in these situations. So you could observe them with their peers at the park. You could have a play date with friends or with relatives and just see how they do with these peer interactions. What you're going to want to do is if your kid has very, very few same age peer interactions right now, you're going to want to go out of your way to set up time, right? So if that means joining a friend group online, making friends at the playground. You're going to want to really go out of your way so that your kid has some exposure with kids in their exact same age peer group, because that's all it is during school. If your kid struggles here, remember, it's a developmental process. It's fine. If your kid's too bossy, too grabby, that's where you can come in and gently and confidently try to correct their behavior. Gentle hands. You'll want to make friends, so make sure you share. If you want friends, make sure to share. Oh, you don't always have to be the boss. Sometimes you can play the game your friend wants to play. By the way, when I say friend, what I mean is friend by the 4 or 5-year-old's point of view. So friendships at this age are called situational friendships. So it's like any peer you happen to be play with that you like, that's your friend. And that is perfectly normal for this stage. People don't have enduring friendships until later. If your kid already is in a daycare or a preschool setting, then you're going to want to make an appointment with their teacher and ask how they are interpersonally, right? And based on that information, again, you can go back and work with your kid on these skills. I want to mention 2 things. One, it's okay if your kid isn't great at it right now. It's hard to be good at this when you're 4. The other thing is your kid might not act around you the way that they are going to act when they enter TK or kindergarten, right? So your kid, even at a very young age, already knows how to do something that we call code switching. Your kid knows how to act like a different person depending on their environment. So they might surprise you and be quite a different kid in the classroom environment. So don't get discouraged if your kid just is grabby and bossy and doesn't like to share, maybe pushes. They're things that you can work on and they'll get better at them with time, okay? And again, they might blow you out of the water. They might shock you with how they behave in a classroom setting. All right, so there you have it. That is our top 10 items for getting your kid ready for their first day of school. I want to hear questions from you. Now, before we get to those questions, I'm going to give you a bonus point, number 11, which is that starting with the very first day, stay involved. Number 11 is stay involved with your school. Show up to PTA meetings, make a friend on the PTA, find out where other kids, where other families take their kids to play after school. That way you can go play there as well and chit-chat with the other parents. Make a date with that teacher. Show up to the school meetings as much as you can. This, as I mentioned earlier, could be our first big opportunity to be involved civically with our community. And also, the more involved that you are with your school community, the better your kid will do. All right, so producer Kate's got some questions for me. Thank you. Okay, so first question. Should I introduce new extracurricular activities at the same time my daughter starts school, or should I hold off? We want to put her in dance classes. That is a great question. That's a great question. So I don't think there's a really strong answer either way, but my recommendation would be to hold off. If there's an opportunity to do those types of activities through your school, I might recommend that you start doing them through the school. The other thing is that your child in starting school might become interested in something that the school offers that you didn't expect, right? So you're thinking dance or you're thinking soccer. Who knows? Maybe your school has this other thing that's important to that school, that's important to that community. You never would have guessed, and your kid wants to lean into that. So again, this is not a hard and fast answer, but I might recommend holding off at this moment in time and waiting to see what the school has to offer. On the other hand, if your kid wants to start taking dance classes now, and you don't have to necessarily continue into the school year, that it's easy to transition and do something else, then I'd say it's fine. Go ahead and do it now. Okay, next question. How do I approach asking my kid about any fears or concerns they have about starting school? Fantastic question. So fears and concerns about starting school are totally normal. totally normal. I would say perhaps the best way of addressing them is every night with your kid, you should read. Always take that time. I know it's so difficult to find any time, but take that time to read books with your kid before bed. Or if another time works well for you, then pick that other time as well. Go to your local library, check out books about the first day of school, because then you could use this as a starting point for those conversations. Something that I never take for granted in this role as head of design research and consumer insights at Age of Learning, the makers of ABCmouse, is how much I learn by going through the same journey that our customers go through. I am a dad. I spend a lot of time parenting, and I'm constantly surprised with what I learn from my own kids. So you don't even know what conversations reading those books can start. Your kid's going to surprise you. So my advice would be to check out those books. They have books like this that go along with everything. Like if your kid is into dinosaurs, there's going to be like a dinosaur first day of school book, right? Get a book that your kid can get into and have that be a conversation starter. Next question, how do I know if a traditional public school is good for my kid or if I should explore charter school or Montessori school options? That's a great question. So the first thing to know is that the meaning of public school is huge, right? So I mean, public school has so many varieties. It would be impossible to talk about all of those varieties here. And the same goes with charter school and Montessori. You would think Montessori, specifically follows the Montessori regime and they're all more or less similar. They're definitely not. They're definitely not. So all of these schools have a huge range. The way to know is to go to the school and find out, right? And even then, it's hard to be sure, right? Because your kid might do something that surprises you. It could be that your kid starts to thrive in an environment where you thought like, oh, I wouldn't have thought my kid liked that. But they do, and they love it, and they're making friends, and they're finding their identity. So my answer to that question is that is not fully knowable, right? It's not fully knowable. But you can inform the question by going to visit the different school options that you have for you. And you can then make an assessment with your kid and make the best guess. Also, there's always trade-offs, right? There's always trade-offs. So maybe public school or charter school are free of any kind of fee for you, but maybe the Montessori school does come with a very hefty fee. You might be thinking about budgeting. Maybe you want to have those kinds of paid options later for your kid, like when they're in the older school grades, or maybe you want to hold that for extracurricular activities. So, of course, there are all of these trade-offs and logistics to think about. Actually, this exact same question came up for me and our family. And we decided to enroll our kid in the public TK that's available to us. And we didn't make that decision lightly. We did it by checking out a bunch of schools that are available to us with spots open, and we decided that this was probably the best bet for us. And if we're wrong, you know what? You can take them out of that school and put them in a different one. Okay. Next question. My son is afraid to leave his pre-K friends. How can I open him up to the idea of making new friends? That's a great question. Like, first of all, if your son has friendships like that, and your son is only 4 or 5, then that's a beautiful thing that they're already forming those kinds of friendships. I would say try to communicate to your son that he can keep those friendships and make new ones. So make play dates outside of school with your son's old friends, and then communicate about new school like it can be a new adventure, right? And I wouldn't even focus on the new friends piece. Don't say like, oh, I'm sorry, you're losing your old friends, but you're making new friends. Say, you're not losing your old friends. You'll still be able to see them, but you're going to go to a new school, a different school from what they're going to, and it's going to have new and exciting things for you. All right. Great questions. Thank you. Thanks, Kate. Oh, great question here. Does my son need to know any base skills like shape or color recognition? This comes up a lot. Like, what does it mean to be school ready? Are there requirements before you enter school? And the short answer is no, right? So there is no entrance exam for transitional kindergarten or kindergarten. And that might sound absurd coming out of my mouth, but I need to say it because people act almost like there is. There is no entrance exam for your kid to be able to attend TK or kindergarten. There is no entrance exam. So your kid can know no shapes, no colors, no letters, no numbers, and it's fine. They still get to go, and they'll learn those skills in TK or kindergarten. On the other hand, if the question is, well, what should my kid know to give them the best chance of growth and learning and so on? In that case, it helps if your kid does have this baseline knowledge. Our 4-year-old is already starting to read. So, and we're not pushy on that, right? We don't push that stuff. She developed an interest in it. She's not even 4.5 yet. And she already loves decoding words and, she starts to write letters that don't mean anything, but she'll ask us what sound they make. She just shows a playful interest in literacy that we don't push on her at all, right? She may be bored when the other kids are learning to read. I don't know. On the other hand, a kid going in who has no letter identification at all, well, they'll have to learn everything from scratch, whereas maybe the bulk of the class already can identify their letters. The thing to consider here is that it's all about trade-offs, right? So if you are investing your time and energy with your kid learning letter identification, well, that means you're not doing some other thing. And I was very careful in reviewing those top 10 recommendations. And I do firmly believe that it's more important to get your kids psychologically and emotionally ready for the school experience than it is for the letters thing. That said, there's going to be tons of letters and numbers in school, right? So if you can get them excited about that as a new adventure, remember I talked about shopping, I talked about setting up a special school area in your home. If you can get them excited about that stuff and hang up and have workbooks that feature letters and numbers, all the better, because they're going to be seeing a lot of that stuff in school. So in that sense, it's more of a familiarity thing and less about have you mastered this knowledge before going into school. Great question. And my daughter tends to be very shy and takes a long time to open up to new people. How can I help her adjust to the classroom? I love that. I think definitely check out that book, Butterflies on the First Day of School, because that's what it's about. I think that's a beautiful thing. And my professional opinion as a PhD in development is that we embrace the differences that our kids bring to our families and our lives. We embrace the differences that they bring to their community, including their classroom, right? So if your kid is shy, I think that's a beautiful thing. I don't think that's a problem at all. I think that perhaps, maybe your kid wouldn't want to go into that classroom, but so long as they show up and they're willing to be involved, it's okay that your kid is kind of shy, They're going to make friendships that are natural for them. They might not be the gregarious one in school. That's okay. But what I would do is, again, check out books that are appropriate for the first day of school and use that as a conversation starter for your kid. If you find, for example, that whenever you go to a playground, your kid straight up avoids their peers, then I would say that's an opportunity in the 3 months before school to encourage them to be like, oh, that girl has rainbows on her shoes too. I think you guys are rainbow shoe friends. What I regularly do for my kid, because she'll come up to me and say, those girls aren't playing with me, I want to play with them, is I will just pick up my kid, walk over to the group of girls and say, hey, my daughter wants to play with you, can she play? And just that scaffolding is enough. Sometimes. So don't be afraid to actually intervene and to scaffold the beginning of those relationships, because then your kid may well play with this other kid on the playground, and they'll become more familiarized with these peer relationships. Great question. Last one. Thank you so much, Kate. All right. Last question here. My daughter is very eager to start school and keeps asking when she can start. What activities can I do to keep her satisfied, yet still excited for the next few months? Well, if your daughter is very eager to start school and keeps asking about it, I don't really think you have much of a problem. I think that's awesome. I would say lean into developing this mini school area in your home. All the times that she wants to play school at home, say like, okay, we'll play school. And this is a great candidate for someone to do all the dry runs with you. For example, like when you're going through transportation to school, or when you're doing the meal prep if you have to do it. This is the kind of kid who would probably love to be involved in every step of the way. I would say go to your school's website, show her a picture of her teacher, show her what her teacher's name is, and she's going to have a great head start on making friends with her school and making friends with her teacher for the first day. Thank you so much for joining us today. We loved having all of you here. Thank you for your questions. Thanks for your participation. And we look forward to our next webinar. So we would love, once again, to see your goodbye ritual. So what is it that you're going to do with your kid so that they'll feel comfortable being apart from you and in the classroom? Your goodbye ritual. Remember to post on TikTok using hashtag #OffToSchoolChallenge and tag us at ABCmouse. Okay, if you have any other questions or comments or would like to check out more from the ABCmouse team, visit our Instagram or TikTok using @ABCmouse, or send us an email with your questions to webinar@abcmouse.com. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.